Welcome to video number 8. Before I get started with the translation and the discussion in this video, I wanted to take a minute to just tell you about my qualifications that relate to the Greek language and language in general. I have a master's degree in linguistics from UCLA in Los Angeles, California. And I studied modern Greek for 2 years as an undergraduate at Stanford University with a native Greek speaker. She was a graduate student in education who came from Greece, and that was a great experience. I have taught myself biblical Greek for the most part, and was fascinated with the relationship between modern Greek and biblical Greek. When I started learning biblical Greek, I just was kind of surprised by how similar it was to modern Greek, which is really one of the reasons why I'm making these videos. I'd also like to re-mention a few resources that I think will be really helpful if you're trying to learn biblical Greek on your own. The first of these is a modern Greek resource, which I've already mentioned, but it's really good. It's Language Transfer, Modern Greek. And the other resource you may find helpful is the Kini Greek on Mango Languages, which you can get free access to if you have a library card. Many libraries in the United States allow access to Mango languages with a library card. I am putting links for both of these resources in the description below. This is a translation video, and I'm going to go through part of John 6:28, but not as much as I have in previous videos because I'm going to take a little more time to discuss the connection of Kini and modern Greek. And just one more reason, I know I've given you several for doing this, but another one is that I think it makes the words of the gospel just that much more connected to us in the present day, to see how the language is continuous. So I'm going to translate the first part of John 6:28, in which the subjunctive occurs. And so after that, I'm just going to show you how similar the subjunctive is in Kini and modern Greek. And then finally, because the verb to do occurs in this passage, I'm going to talk about that verb in Kini and in modern Greek. John 6:28 in Kini Greek reads, Ipon un pros afton, ti piomen ina ergazometha ta erga tu theu. Ipon means they said, and un means therefore. Un comes as the second word in the sentence, just like another conjunction that we've seen, which is gar. And so gar means for or then. Again, un means therefore. Pros means to, and afton means him. It's the accusative form of the pronoun aftos. So, altogether, we have ipon un pros afton, which means they said therefore to him. Ti, what? Piomen. And this is a form of the verb pieo, which means I do or I make, and it is in the subjunctive mood. Now, the subjunctive mood is used for a verb when the action is not for sure going to happen. That is, when something is possibly or probably going to happen. The subjunctive is used in a lot of different types of situations, but what all these situations have in common is that there is an underlying theme of possibility or probability rather than certainty. There are a lot of set phrases after which the subjunctive occurs, but often it's just a matter of judgment that a native speaker makes along the lines of, that sounds right or that doesn't sound right. So some of the phrases after which the subjunctive occurs are things like, I want you to, or I need you to, I really wish that you'd do this. These are all expressions of desire or wishing. Things like, it's important that, it's necessary that, he must do something, we insist that, conditional things like, if I were rich, I would travel a lot. And it's a very long list. I'm not going to try and exhaust it here. It's just a really long list. But what is underlying in all these cases is the theme of possibility or probability. With all those phrases I just listed off, just because somebody wants something or thinks it's important or thinks it's necessary doesn't mean that whatever follows is actually going to happen, and so that's why the subjunctive is used. So in English, different verbs behave differently in the subjunctive, which makes it a pretty difficult, actually, thing to prescribe in English, and thankfully Greek is much more straightforward than English. I've already given you some examples in English just so you can kind of see what the subjunctive is. The examples I've given so far of the subjunctive have been the phrases, mostly the phrases that need the subjunctive to follow. So let me just flesh out a few of those here. They would be things like, we insist that he have a new coat, or it's important that she go to the store, or I wish I could speak Greek better. So in all of these sentences, the verb there is, the subjunctive is formed in a different way. And in some of them, you might have thought, like, for example, it's important that she go to the store, it's important that she goes to the store. Either one's okay. So in that case, the subjunctive and the present just, a native speaker would say either one's all right. And that's one of the reasons why in English the subjunctive is kind of like fading out or dying out. There's lots of cases where before, like in earlier times, an English speaker would have said, oh yeah, it's got to be that way. It's got to be in the subjunctive. And now a lot of those subjunctives are just disappearing. So that's English. You may have noticed that the subjunctive is what's called a mood of a verb. It's not a tense, so it doesn't express anything about the time at which the action is taking place. It's not necessarily related to the time. So there are three moods of verbs. The subjunctive, which we've just talked about, and then the most common one that's just the normal mood used in much of everyday speech is the indicative. So yeah, that's just kind of like maybe the default mood. And then the third mood is the imperative, or a command, when you're telling somebody to do something. So just a quick overview then. Verbs can have tense, like past, future, present. They can have mood, which we just discussed. They can have voice, which we've talked about also, and aspect, which we've also talked about, or I've talked about in this video or in previous videos. So, back to the Greek. The sentence is, what shall we do? And it's not for sure that they're going to do it, it's just that they're asking, what shall we do? They're asking for the information. So in Kini Greek, the way the subjunctive is formed is you take the present tense of a verb and then you just lengthen the connecting vowel. So in this case, we are doing, or we do, is piumen. That's the present tense. And then when you lengthen the vowel, the u becomes o, omega, and you get the subjunctive, which is piomen. So, ti piomen, what shall we do? Ina, in order that, ergazomatha, which means we work in the subjunctive. So, ergazomatha is the subjunctive form of a verb which we've already seen, which is ergazome. Ergazome means I work. It's a middle voice verb. And the present tense for we, or the first person plural, is ergazometha. That's we work. And so to make it subjunctive, you just lengthen that connecting vowel, and it becomes ergazomatha, which with an omega instead of an omicron. So, ina ergazometha means in order that we work, and the next word is ta erga, which means the works or the deeds. It is the accusative plural form of to ergon, which we've seen before, which means the work, singular. And ergon or erga is also the root of the verb we just saw, ergazome. You can see erga right there at the beginning of ergazome. And to theu, we've also seen before, it's the genitive form of o theos, which is God. So to theu means, to theu means of God. So that phrase is ta erga tu theu, which means the works of God. And so that entire sentence is ti piomen ina ergazometha ta erga tu theu, which means what shall we do in order to work the works of God. Now comes the really cool part where we see how the subjunctive in modern Greek is derived from and very similar to the subjunctive in Kini. So we've just seen that the subjunctive in Kini is formed by taking the present tense of a verb and then just lengthening the connecting vowel. In modern Greek, the verb stays in, so the subjunctive form is the same as the present tense. There's no lengthening of vowels. But it is marked by this little word that comes before it, and that word is na. So if you wanted to say in modern Greek, what shall we do, you would say ti, it's what, this just like it is in Kini. Ti na kanume, what shall we do? And kanume is the present tense of the verb kano, I do. And then with that little na there, it indicates that it is a hypothetical action. So you might have thought, that's interesting. Na looks kind of like ina, which we just saw. And ina in Kini means in order that. And it is, in fact, true that na just became a shortened form of ina, and then it no longer meant in order that. It just became this little kind of empty marker that says, oops, or excuse me, that says something like, attention, the following verb is in the subjunctive. So with the second verb in this passage that's in the subjunctive, ergazometha, we saw, the present form here being ergazometha, just with a shorter vowel in Kini. In modern Greek, we have a very similar verb in the present. It's ergazomaste, which means we work. And then if you want to put that in modern Greek into the subjunctive, all you do is put na in front of ergazomaste. So na ergazomaste means that we work, subjunctive. So just so you can compare that sentence with the subjunctive in Kini and modern Greek, I'll give them both to you here. First the Kini. Ti piomen ina ergazometha te erga tutheu. And then the modern. Ti na kanume ya na ergazomaste ta erga tutheu. And the only word there I didn't say before is ya, which means for. So in both cases, the translation is, what shall we do in order to work the works of God? Back to a little comparison of the subjunctive in Kini and in modern Greek. We've seen that the subjunctive has no time significance in both. In other words, no past, present, future. But in both Kini and modern, the subjunctive does express aspect, or the type of action, whether it's like ongoing or bounded. And as I just said, this is the case in both modern Greek and Kini. So in many ways, the subjunctive in Kini is the same as in modern Greek, except, as we've already seen, in modern Greek there is no vowel lengthening, and in modern Greek all of the subjunctive, the subjunctive is formed, the subjunctive is introduced by a mood marker, which is na. Modern and Kini both express aspect, as I just mentioned, in subjunctive. Modern Greek does this by, after the na, if the verb is the present with the open form, that is ongoing aspect, and if the verb is present with the closed form, that is the bounded action. And Kini does it a little differently. In Kini, the ongoing is the present subjunctive, and the bounded is the aorist subjunctive. I expressed it that way because that's how grammar books do it, but if you look at it in Kini, it's really the same thing, because the present subjunctive uses the open stem, and the aorist subjunctive uses the closed stem, just like modern Greek. In the sentences we've seen in this passage, both of the verbs piomen and ergazomatha in John 6:28, they are both formed with the open stem of the verb, and so they're both continuous actions. So I wanted to give you an example of a verb in the subjunctive that has a closed stem, a bounded action, because these two that we've seen were both open, and I'm going to do that in modern Greek, and I'm going to do that with a different verb that is more regular, so you can see the pattern. So the verb is agorazo, which means I buy. So first, the open type of action, and that would be in a situation such as, I don't know, what shall I buy? Just generally speaking, what shall I buy? And that would be tina agorazo, with a zeta. And then for the closed stem, the zeta changes to a sigma, and that would be a bounded action, a situation such as, what shall I buy at the market tomorrow? And there you would say, tina agorazo. That's a little primer on the subjunctive in Kini and modern and how they are related. And then just finally, I wanted to talk about the verb to do, because you probably noticed they're very different in Kini and in modern. So the verb we saw in Kini was pieo, And the verb we have in modern is kano. And I'm always kind of curious because this is in situations like this where a common verb like I do is so different. Because usually those common verbs are the ones that stay pretty stable over time. So in this case, here's the explanation. There was another verb in Kini Greek meaning to work, actually it meant to work hard or to be weary. So it had that kind of qualification on working. It's like working hard. And that was komno. And it is from komno that modern Greek gets kano. So that's just kind of interesting to me that, it's evolved that way, that in modern Greek, the word for I do is the word that used to be I work hard, I weary. So now it's just I do or I make. Kano is I do or I make in modern Greek. Now you can see in other words the Kini word pieo, and that has survived in as a part of other bigger words in modern Greek. So one of those examples would be the modern Greek word χρησιμοποιώ, which means I use. And that last little part there, pio, is from pieo, I do. And so chrysimos means useful in Kini and also in modern Greek. And then pio means I do in Kini, as we've seen. So you put them together and you get χρησιμοποιώ, I use, or literally, I useful do. That is the end of this video, and I hope you've enjoyed the little digression about connections between Kini and modern Greek, because I enjoy looking at them. And in the next video, I will most probably get back to just more translations. Thanks again for watching.